My name is Kin, an ordinary and lucky man. In this quiet suburb, I have formed a simple but loving family with my wife Carol and daughter Patty. Whenever I think of this family, my heart is filled with warmth and fulfillment. On my way home from work every day, I am always full of anticipation, because I know that no matter how noisy and complicated the outside world is, there are always two people waiting for me at home. One is the gentle and virtuous Carol, and the other is our lively and lovely daughter Patty. As a manager of a research laboratory, my job is not easy. The daily operation of the laboratory, project management, and staff coordination, each of which requires a lot of my energy and time. But no matter how busy my work is, I always maintain my longing and attachment to my home. When I came home, I would start by giving Patty a big hug and listening to her stories about the funny things that happened at school. Her laughter was always so clear and pleasant, as if it could wash away my tiredness of the day. Then, I would prepare dinner with Carol, enjoying the tacit understanding and fun of cooking together. After dinner, our family would sit on the couch and watch TV or chat. Those moments were filled with laughter in every corner of the house, and Patty would snuggle up in Carol's arms while I sat next to them, quietly enjoying the rare warmth and serenity. On weekends, we would go for walks together in the parks in the countryside or organize small family gatherings at home. Those times, which always go by exceptionally fast, are extraordinarily cherished. Whenever I think of these wonderful moments, I feel that all the effort was worth it. I know that this home is my forever harbor, a place I will miss no matter where I go. As a father and husband, I am aware of my great responsibility. I not only have to provide material security for this family, but also have to give them spiritual support and care. Therefore, no matter how busy I am at work, I will always find time to spend with my family so that they can feel my love and care. Watching Patty grow up day by day, from a toddler girl to a young woman in her own right, has brought a sense of pride to my heart. As for Carol, she has always been the most important person in my life. Her support and understanding is what keeps me going at work. In this happy family, we love and support each other. I know that no matter what difficulties and challenges we may encounter in the future, as long as we are united as a family of three, nothing can stop us from moving forward. Of course, life is not always smooth sailing. We also encounter conflicts and disagreements, but every time we manage to solve the problems by being open and honest with each other and understanding each other. This also reinforces my belief that the power of family is infinite. Sometimes I visualize future life scenarios. When Patty grows up, when she has her own family and children, our family will still be her most solid support. And Carol and I will always be by her side, giving her endless love and support. Whenever it's late at night, I like to stand in front of the window and look out at the starry sky and the lights in the distance. At that moment, I would feel immense peace and fulfillment, because I know that in this world, there is a warm home waiting for me to go back. There are my favorite people and most precious memories there. This is the meaning of everything I have fought and worked for. I often think that happiness is not really out of reach. For me, happiness is the smiling faces of my family when I come home from work every day. It is the coziness of sitting together as a family at dinner. It is the joyful time spent with my family on weekends. And it is also the eternal memories that are made up of those ordinary but beautiful moments. These moments make me deeply feel the importance of family and happiness, and make me cherish every moment with my family more. In this family, I have found true happiness and fulfillment. I know that this happiness is not easy to come by, so I will work harder to protect it and cherish it. No matter what storms and challenges I will encounter in the future, I will hold my family's hands tightly and walk through every difficulty and share every moment of laughter and tears together. Because in my heart, this family is my most precious treasure and source of strength. The other day, Carol received a phone call from Jake, the owner of our local bar, a man who always had a charming smile and a way with words. He invited Carol to work at his bar, saying that he was hiring and he thought Carol would be a great fit. I don't know the specifics of the call, but I could tell by the look on Carol's face after she answered the phone that she was a little ticked off. She had been looking for an opportunity to be able to take some of the financial strain off of her family, and while she never complained to me about it, I knew what was going on inside of her. Carol brought up the subject at the dinner table the other night. With some hesitation, she said, Kin, Jake called me today and said that he needed people at his bar and asked if I would be interested in working there. I put down the knife and fork in my hand and looked at her serious expression with mixed feelings. I knew that she wanted to do more for her family, but I was also worried that this job would change our current life balance. What do you think? I tried to sound as calm as possible. Carol sighed. Actually, I'm kind of heartened. After all, an extra income is always good. Besides, Jake said the hours are flexible and I can adjust them to fit my family's needs. I was silent for a moment, then said, I understand where you're coming from, but we need to think this through as well. This job may bring some changes that we don't expect. Carol nodded. I know. I'll think it over. Over the next few days, I noticed that Carol became more quiet. She was obviously weighing this decision, and I could see the struggle within her. On the one hand, she wanted to contribute more to the family. On the other hand, she was worried that this decision would put undue pressure on us. Carol sits on the couch after dinner one day, holding the job contract Jake gave her. She looked a little confused, but her eyes revealed a hint of determination. I sat down next to her and gently took her hand. Have you decided? She took a deep breath. Yes, I decided to take the job. I think it's an opportunity and Jake has assured me that he will take good care of me. I looked into her eyes and saw the anticipation within her. I knew that I couldn't stop her. I could only support her fully. Well, I said with a smile, then let's face this new challenge together. I trust you and I trust our family to handle this change. Carol held my hand tightly. Thank you, Ken. I know this decision affects us all, but I'll do my best. And so it was that Carol began her work at the bar. Since then, our lives have gradually changed. At first, Carol only occasionally mentioned what she had seen and heard at the bar, but later, she began to talk frequently about work and about Jake, and her words showed her admiration for him. I tried to be understanding and supportive, but I was inevitably a little uneasy inside. One weekend night, Carol came home late from work. I sat on the couch waiting for her. The house lights dimmed, and I was lost in thought. When Carol opened the door and came in, I saw a smile on her face and an unusual twinkle in her eyes. Carol replied as she changed her shoes, "It was pretty good. Jake taught me some new bartending techniques today. It was fun." I nodded, but an inexplicable emotion welled up in my heart. From that moment on, I realized that this job was much more than simply financial support for Carol. She had found a new sense of joy and fulfillment in her work that had been missing from our original family life. Since Carol started working at the bar, I've gradually noticed a quiet change in the pace of our family's life. At first, the subtle changes didn't attract much attention, but as time went on, they became more and more noticeable and impossible for me to ignore. Carol started coming home late, and sometimes even missed dinner with us because she was busy with work. When night fell, Patty and I would always feel an unspeakable sense of loss when we sat down at the dinner table and faced empty seats. That day, Carol was once again unable to come home for dinner because of work. Patty looked at me with a twinkle of disbelief and loss in her eyes. I did my best to comfort her by telling her that Mommy was just busy with work, but she couldn't help but mutter, "Why is Mommy always so busy now?" I was speechless as the resentment and worry slowly began to build in my mind. When Carol finally came home that night, I couldn't hide my emotions. "Why are you always so late?" There was a hint of reproach in my tone. "Do you know how much Patty and I look forward to having dinner with you?" Carol looked exhausted as she took off her jacket and explained softly, "Ken, I know I've been neglecting my family lately because of work, but I'm trying really hard to balance work and family. The bar was especially busy today, and I just couldn't spare the time. You always say the bar is busy." I couldn't help but raise my voice. "But have you ever thought that this family needs you too? That Patty needs you? That I need you too?" A flicker of guilt flashed in Carol's eyes, but she still tried to explain. "I know, Ken. It's not that I don't value my family. It's just that this job is important to me too. I find my worth and fulfillment there." Fulfillment? I felt a pang of irritation. Can't you find fulfillment in your family? Is growing up with Patty and running this household with me less fulfilling than you bartending at the bar? The sound of our argument echoed in the night air, and I knew my words might have been a bit harsh, but I just couldn't stand the feeling of being ignored. Carol was silent for a moment, then silently walked into the bedroom and closed the door. That night, we slept back to back, and the distance between us seemed to become unattainable. I began to wonder if this job was really right for Carol, if it was really worth her commitment. In the days that followed, our relationship became more and more strained. Whenever Carol came home late or was too busy at work to attend to her family, resentment built up in me. We began to have frequent arguments, which often ended in a Cold War. Since that late-night argument, things between Carol and I seemed to have hit an ice point. We spoke less and less, and each exchange seemed to carry the odor of gunpowder. And as Carol got deeper into her work at the bar, her relationship with Jake became more and more intimate, which added to the uneasiness in my mind. I noticed that Carol was coming home later and later, and there was always a certain special gleam in her eye whenever Jake was mentioned. I couldn't be sure what kind of emotion it was, but it was enough to make me wary. I had tried to communicate with her and ask her about her relationship with Jake, but she always avoided answering or downplayed it. One Friday night, Carol was once again late. I stood in front of the window, staring up at the dark night sky with a mixture of confusion and unease. As she entered, I tried to sound as calm as possible. "Why are you so late?" Carol glanced at me and said lightly, "The bar got a little busy, so I worked a little extra. Is it overtime with Jake?" I couldn't help but follow up. She froze for a moment, then frowned. "Ken, why do you always ask that? Jake and I just have a working relationship. Does a working relationship need to be that close?" Anger began to rise in me. "When I saw you with him, the distance between you didn't look like a mere working relationship. You're just being suspicious for no reason." Carol's voice rose as well. "I'm very disappointed in your distrust." "Distrust? Then why can't you be honest about your relationship?" I asked rhetorically. Carol took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. "Ken, I've said many times that Jake and I are just co-workers. There is nothing going on between us that goes beyond a working relationship. Why are you just not willing to believe me?" "Because that's not what I see." I roared. "What I see is the closeness between you, what you're hiding from me." Once again, our argument echoed through the night air, and this time, Carol didn't choose to be silent or back down. She looked at me with determination and resolve shining in her eyes. "If you really can't trust me, then the problem between us may not be my relationship with Jake, but your attitude toward me and toward this family." Her words pierced my heart like a sharp knife. I suddenly realized that perhaps the real problem was not Jake, but myself. It was my distrust of Carol, my fear and uncertainty about the future of this family that made me so sensitive and paranoid. However, the argument did not solve the problem. In the following days, our relationship became more strained. Whenever Carol mentioned Jake or her work, I became suspicious and angry. Carol became defensive towards me, and the emotional distance between us grew wider and wider. The crisis of trust exacerbated the sense of alienation between us. I began to pay more attention to Carol's every move, trying to find evidence of her inappropriate relationship with Jake. Carol sensed my suspicion and mistrust and began to handle her relationship with Jake more carefully, even avoiding mentioning him in front of me. However, this avoidance did not ease my suspicions. Instead, it reinforced my belief that there was a secret between them. I began to monitor Carol more closely, even secretly checking her cell phone and social media. I knew it was sick behavior, but I couldn't help myself. That night, our argument reached an unprecedented level of intensity. I lost control of my emotions and my words were as sharp as a knife, and Carol was equally unyielding. After a series of verbal exchanges, she suddenly fell silent, her eyes glistening with tears, but she pursed her lips tightly, refusing to let them fall. I looked at her, the anger in my heart subsiding, replaced by an unnameable panic. I knew that this argument might actually be irreparable. Carol began to silently pack her bags. Her movements were slow, but every movement revealed determination. I didn't stop her, but just watched quietly, realizing in my heart that no matter what I said at this moment, I couldn't undo her decision. As she pulled her suitcase to the door, I whispered, "Carol, do you really have to go?" There was no more reproach in my tone, only endless regret. She stopped but didn't turn around. "Yes, I need some time to think, to clear my head." Maybe it will be better for both of us." I nodded my head, although my heart was full of reluctance. I knew that sometimes taking some time apart and letting each other calm down was a way to solve problems. I didn't hold her back any longer. I just silently helped her open the door. Carol left, and the house was suddenly empty. I sat on the couch and looked at her picture with mixed feelings. I knew that the argument was not because of Jake, but because there was a communication problem between us. We both needed time to reflect and find the root of the problem. A few days later, I found out from Carol's sister that she had moved in with her sister's family. I knew that she would do well there, with the company and care of her family. At the same time, I understood that this was a process of self-reflection for her, a phase in which she was trying to sort out her thoughts and feelings. Although my heart was still filled with thoughts and feelings of sadness for Carol, I knew that it was very important to give her enough time and space to think. I also began to reflect on my own behavior and attitude, trying to find the real reason for the problems between us. During that time, we didn't have direct contact, but I could feel the ties and thoughts of each other. We both knew that this separation was not the end, but a new beginning, an opportunity for us to re-examine our relationship with each other and our marriage. During this period of time, I felt more and more that Jake's appearance was not a coincidence, and that his proximity seemed to hide a deeper motive. So, I decided to investigate Jake's background in depth, utilizing all my contacts and resources in an attempt to uncover his true identity and purpose. The wait was long. Whenever it was late at night, I would sit in front of my computer and review those information about Jake over and over again, hoping to find clues from it. Finally, after a few days, the detectives sent me a thorough report. The report mentions that Jake has not only been sentenced to prison for fraud and document forgery, but he is also a professional emotional fraudster. He has used different identities in several places, utilizing his charm and rhetoric to approach women who are emotionally unavailable or spiritually desirable, and to achieve his goals by tricking them into trusting him. More importantly, the report reveals Jake's true motives and purpose for approaching Carol. It turned out that Jake, after learning about Carol's background and family situation, considered her to be a target with rich emotions and a certain financial base. He planned to win Carol's trust and affection and then manipulate her, even attempting to gain financial benefits from our family. His plan included a gradual disassociation of our relationship as a couple so that he could make various demands at the right time. Looking at the shocking information, the anger in my heart burned. This Jake not only cheated Carol's feelings, but also tried to destroy our marriage and family. I must not let him succeed. In order for Carol to see Jake's true colors, I decided to go to her in person and show her all of this evidence. I contacted Carol's sister by phone and learned that she was doing well, but still a little down in the dumps. I told her that I had something important to talk to Carol about, something that concerned her future and happiness, and hoped that she could help me arrange a meeting. Carol's sister replied quickly and agreed to pass the message on to Carol for me. A few days later, we met in a quiet cafe. Carol looked a little haggard, but her eyes were still determined. I knew that this meeting would be very important for both of us as a couple. When I handed her that information about Jake and explained in detail Jake's true motives for approaching her, a look of disbelief crossed her face. She looked over the report page by page, her brow furrowed. After reading it, she looked up at me with tears glistening in her eyes and said in a shaky voice, "Ken, I really didn't know he was like this, I thought." I interrupted her by gently holding her hand. "It's okay, Carol. Now that we know who he really is, we won't let him get away with it or let him hurt you again. I have to do this for our family, for our future." I looked at her fondly. "Carol, will you face this with me and start over?" She held my hand tightly with a determined gleam in her eyes. "Of course I do. We are family. No matter what happens, we have to face it together." I stood in front of the house that day with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Ever since Carol had left home, the house had been cold and empty, and even though Patty and I had tried to maintain a normal life, we both knew that an important member of the family was missing. When Carol's figure appeared in my line of sight, I couldn't put into words how I felt at that moment. She looked a little haggard, but the determination and gentleness in her eyes made me feel more at ease than ever before. I greeted her and hugged her tightly. "Carol, welcome home." My voice was a little shaky, but every word was full of sincerity. She gently patted me on the back and smiled. "Ken, I really missed you guys." At that moment, Patty came running out of the room as well, and she immediately jumped into Carol's arms when she saw her. Mother and daughter hugged each other tightly as tears slid down their cheeks. I stood by and watched them, my heart filled with gratitude and happiness. That evening, we sat down at the dining room table and enjoyed a long overdue family dinner. Carol had cooked a sumptuous meal, and every dish was filled with the flavors of home. As we ate and chatted, we talked about the past and looked forward to the future. Although Carol had returned to the family, I knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The trust between us had suffered a serious breakdown and needed to be rebuilt. This is not a simple process, but one that will take time and a concerted effort from each of us. After dinner, I had an in-depth conversation with Carol. We honestly shared our thoughts and feelings about each other, admitted our mistakes, and expressed our expectations for the future. I saw the determination and sincerity in her eyes, and I knew that she really wanted to make up for her past mistakes. Patty also played a key role in this process. With her characteristic innocence and kindness, she continued to spread love and warmth between us. She helped us revisit each other and made us appreciate this family even more. In an effort to rebuild trust, we started attending family events together. Every weekend, we would choose a place to go on an outing or do something fun. These activities not only helped us understand each other better, but also brought back the fun of family. Carol has also started to take back the responsibility of being a housewife. She takes care of our food and living with all her heart, and at the same time actively participates in Patty's learning and growth. My heart is filled with gratitude when I see the efforts she has made for the harmony of the family. However, the rebuilding of trust is not always easy. At times, I would be skeptical over the smallest things, but every now and then, I would remind myself to give Carol a chance and to trust that she genuinely wanted to return to her family. As time went by, I gradually felt the change in Carol. She became more mature and steady and knew better how to communicate with me and handle family relationships. Our tacit understanding and trust were gradually restored in this process. In the time it takes to rebuild trust and repair a marriage, the support of the family becomes our most valuable strength. During the time Carol was away from home, I felt deeply helpless and lost. Fortunately, our family and friends were always by our side and gave us endless support and encouragement. Especially Carol's sister, Patty, who has been our strongest support. Patty not only provided a safe haven for Carol when we needed it most, but also gave her spiritual comfort. She chatted with Carol every day, listened to her heartfelt grievances and doubts, and helped her analyze the crux of her problems. With Patty's patience and guidance, Carol gradually came out of her confusion and began to re-examine her marriage and family. Apart from Patty, our other family and friends have also given us great support. They have called and asked about us with concern, encouraging us to be strong in the face of difficulties. Their concern made us feel the warmth and strength of our family and made us realize that we are not alone. With the support of her family and friends, Carol regained her sense of responsibility for her family and her love of life. She began to actively participate in family affairs, taking care of the children and household chores, trying to create a warm and harmonious family atmosphere. I also tried my best to cooperate with her and share the responsibility of the family. During that time, we went through many difficulties and challenges together, but it was these difficulties that made us cherish each other more and understand the importance of family. We learned to communicate and understand, to support and tolerate each other. Our marriage relationship was gradually repaired and strengthened with the support of our family and friends. Looking back now, that difficult time turned out to be the most valuable treasure in our marriage. It has made us cherish our present happy life even more and realize even more that the power of family is great and warm. We would like to thank those friends and relatives who gave us support and encouragement during our most difficult times, and who gave us back our courage and confidence in life. As time went on, our marriage relationship grew stronger and our lives got better. We often recall those difficult times and marvel at the greatness and warmth of our family. Whenever we encounter difficulties, we remember that experience and then join hands to overcome them together. Later, on a sunny weekend, we invited all our friends and relatives who had helped us to our home for a get-together. We prepared sumptuous food and wine and shared our happiness and joy with them. At the table, we raised our glasses to express our heartfelt thanks to them for their selfless support and encouragement when we needed it most. Our home was filled with laughter and warmth that day. Our hearts were filled with gratitude and contentment as we watched our children play in the yard. We knew that it was the strength of our family that gave us back the meaning of life and a sense of happiness. Today, our marriage has moved past those difficult years and is ushering in a bright future. We cherish each other, our family, and those friends and relatives who have given us support and encouragement. We believe that in the days to come, we will always walk hand in hand and create a better life together. And that difficult time also made us realize one thing. The strength of family is great and warm, which can make us regain the courage and confidence in life in the midst of difficulties. Therefore, we should cherish and maintain our family relationship more, so that this warmth and strength will always accompany us through every stage of our life. At the same time, we have learned to be grateful and to give back. For those who have helped us, we will always remember and do what we can to help them. We hope to convey the warmth and strength of the family through our actions, so that more people can feel this beauty and happiness. In conclusion, I would like to say, thanks to the support and strength of our family, we have regained the meaning of life and the feeling of happiness. We will always cherish this hard-earned happiness and spend every moment of our lives hand in hand. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.